a lot of our colleagues, like if you see a lot of them, they're just completely focused on the gaming studios, right? They're like, yeah, we're talking to this studio and that studio. The truth is, like, if you can't bring them like a powerful audience that's interested in what you're building, they're not going to use your stuff, right? Like if they're good with what they have right now and they already know how to target that audience, right? So the problem is, like, how can you connect? Why would they come to Web3 and do more complicated stuff if there's no benefit for it, right? So we also need to onboard the other parts of the industry, which are the streamers. We need to get them on board with the movement, right? Which is about, people think it's only about, oh, NFTs and tokens. That's just a product, man. What it's about is open systems. That's what it really is about, right? People don't know how restrictive Web2 games are. They're insanely restrictive. They have a whole bunch of rules, like you can't stream my game and do this, you can't stream my game and do that, you can't monetize it this way, you can't do this type of thing. When they're dictating to you, the user, and you're paying for these things, and they're dictating to you how you can use it.
Oh, what is going on, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dap Central. My name is Fareed, breaking down all of the latest news and updates, as well as performing interviews here with the top platforms on Cardano. I'm excited today to have none other than Carlos Rene, the CEO and founder of DEGA. Now, Carlos, I know you and I just met, finally shook hands in person at Rare Evo. I hope you made it back home. How was that experience for you, finally getting to meet a lot of the Cardano community?
Hey there, Farid. Thank you for having me today. It was a great experience, man. I mean, you were there. Rare Evo is definitely one of the top events in terms of quality of people. I would say that it's not the biggest by a stretch, but it definitely felt like everybody there was worth meeting. I'll say that, right? And the production was top tier quality, right? Everything from the VIP invites to the food to the presenters, everything was top quality. So I definitely have to say that I enjoyed that event a lot and it was worth it. So, anybody that wants to go to any future edition of Rare Evo, definitely recommend it.
Agreed. I'm right there with you. I think the networking, the opportunity, the people, the views, and just the environment was really, really amazing to be in. And so I'm looking forward to it again next year. That'll be my third year going. These past 2 years have been really, really amazing and eye opening from a content creator standpoint. So, again, it was a pleasure meeting you out there as well as the Rabbit King. Now, before we jump into today's video, as always, we're going to be touching on some of the agenda. And so I just want to kind of highlight number one, your experience, a little bit of your background, and then jump into DEGA. So after that, I've got a few questions here touching on some of the products and offerings that DEGA produces. And then towards the end, I want to jump into your vision and what you see for DEGA in the near future. So that said, Carlos, let's kick things off with just a little bit of background from yourself, as well as an overview of what DEGA is.
Happy to do so. So, on my side, I've been doing computer science for over 13 years. That started off the first half of my career with large enterprise organizations such as Wells Fargo Bank, Abbott Pharmaceuticals, IBM Watson, and several governments in the region. So then, midway through my career, I jumped into more of a blockchain based innovation. So I created my own software development studio. We did outsourcing for multiple clients, building layer one protocols, EVM sidechains, cross chain dexes, NFT marketplaces. And, we've been working together for over 6 years now. And then at a personal level, I also took an opportunity to work with IOHK. I led their Cardano sidechains program, particularly around EVM technologies. And I have to say, it was a great experience, one of the best teams that I've ever worked with. And now we've been working on DEGA for about a year, conceptually and operationally from November 2022, right? And DEGA was born from a vision of allowing people around the world to project their creativity through the digital economy, right? And I know that a lot of people would say, well, everybody's already doing that. No, not everybody, right? Mostly people in advanced nations are the ones that can access that type of, let's say, opportunity in that sense, right? People from emerging markets such as Latin America, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and many other regions struggle to even set up something as basic as an online payment system, right? And well, many of these countries don't even have access to dollars, right? So we see Web3 as an opportunity to go exponential in emerging markets, right? It's something that's a great product in advanced economies, but for us, it's kind of like a whole new universe opening up. So that's why we created DEGA. We decided to start on gaming. That's what DEGA means, descentralizar gaming. It's actually in Spanish. And the reason for it is because gamers are digitally native, right? You don't have to preach to them the fact that something digital has value. And second, we're heading towards the gamification of everything, right? You want to learn a language, Duolingo is gamified. You want to take care of your health, Apple Health is gamified. You want to create video, you go to TikTok, TikTok is gamified. So everything is it's heading towards that. So gaming is kind of like the perfect beachhead for that. So yeah, that's kind of like an overview on my experience and also what our vision is at Tega and why we created it.
Thank you for that, Carlos. Really insightful. When it comes to your background, I didn't realize, and now that you mention it, I do vaguely remember that coming up before, that you'd work with IOHK or IOG. But now that you're, bringing it back up, it's really kind of ringing that bell. So with that, I'm sure that there was a lot of experience and a lot of behind the scenes things that you're able to take and then now leverage when building out a platform like Dega. And then you also just mentioned the fact that a lot of people are gamifying things. And I couldn't agree with you more. As a content creator myself on YouTube, I can see this very, very clearly with how YouTube measures things and how they incentivize creators to actually create. And then you also touch on the fact that, because you are dealing with some of this gamified ecosystem, right? That it makes sense to reach out to gamers. And as you're probably more than aware, metaverses have been a really huge narrative in this last bull run. And we're now starting to
Yep.
see the real builders really pop up. So I think you guys are lined up at just the right time. And I think with your experience, you have a lot going for you with respect to Dega. And so now that we understand, where Dega came from and a little bit about your background, do you mind maybe touching on some of the products as well as the one API, which is going to be used as a part of the Dega network to streamline data for the people that you're connecting to from Dega?
Yeah, yeah, happy to do so. So first off, like for anybody trying to like understand what our products are about, on the infrastructure side, it's all about bringing to blockchain what AWS brought to the internet, right? Like for all of us that have built systems before AWS existed, which is to say before the concept of the cloud itself existed, right? It was a struggle, right? Like you had to know the entire stack. You had to know, like, if you needed a SQL Server cluster, you had to know how to set that up, and that was not easy. You needed to know how to configure your network, your private virtual network. You needed to know how to secure your firewall. You needed to know how to do load balancing. You needed to know how to update your OS with the security patches, right? You could have needed multiple different types of OS in the background, right? Now with AWS, it's like, oh, I need a web server, 2 clicks and it's there. I need a MongoDB, 1 click and it's there. So everything that you need, storage, all of these services are just there, ready to go without you needing to become an expert in each of those systems, right? And additionally to that, they provide APIs. Then we have frameworks, and now we have libraries. So it's like ever compounding development of tooling that help you be a more effective, entrepreneur or software developer. Let's say now you can have one person build a massive system that scales to millions of people, with one engineer. Now, in the past, you needed a whole team to be able to do that, right? So that's the same type of experience that we want to bring to blockchain, right? Like you need a sidechain, boom, here it is. You need a layer two, here it is. You need to load balance your system, here it is. You need decentralized storage, here it is. To 1, 2, 3 clicks max, and you're set to go, right? So that's why we're working with so many partners, right? Like you'll see, we announced Aegon recently. On their side, we're working for decentralized storage. There's a few others coming that I would love to mention right now, but I can't. And then there's also On the gaming side, working with Cornucopia's games, working with Melt Finance for wallet integrations, working with World Mobile to support them on the decentralized telecom infrastructure that they're building, and many other things that we want to do together. And basically, we are doing this because we know that we can't build everything and we don't want to build everything, right? We just want to be able to take as much as reuse, let's say, as many modules that exist and integrate them. So yeah, that's kind of like the vision there. So Dega Studio is what's going to be, let's say, the gateway towards this, right? It's going to be the UI that you're going to be using to be able to access and monitor all of these resources for blockchain infrastructure.
Thank you for that. One thing that I have noted, especially with Web 2, is the abstraction of things, right? So you mentioned how you guys are looking to be the one-stop shop for a lot of the things that normally take a lot of heavy lifting that you guys have kind of refined and packaged in a simple to deploy method. And so, for example, for me, when I look at web development, right, you now have platforms like Wix, which allow for people who are nowhere near being, a software developer, the ability to launch their own website, their own shop, and really get that off the ground running. Now, that didn't happen overnight. Things like that took years to develop, where we begin to
Yep.
kind of abstract and grow layer over layer over layer over layer to the point now where we do have a simple to deploy method like Wix. To kind of maybe tie this into the Cardano ecosystem, what I'm also noticing is for developers, right? There was a point where you had to understand low level code or like machine level code, right, to write a smart contract, etc. Now we're seeing platforms like Icon, Fortuna, and all these different things that are really trying to abstract and take all of the heavy lifting away and give a small, simple package that already has everything refined to speed up the development process. So to me, it sounds like that's what you guys are doing. And you guys, again, are kicking this off with the adoption of the DEGA Studio, as well as another product called DEGA Render. So, do you mind maybe touching on what DEGA Render is? And then we're going to jump into some of the technology, which includes Metachains, dAUTH, and dNFTs.
Yeah, so Deco Render is kind of like the consumer side of things, right? Like you think of it kind of like how Google has Google Cloud and they also have Gmail, right? And Google Drive. So it's a 1-2 hit punch in that sense. And the reason for it is because, yeah, a lot of people, think that the game developers are going to come and they're going to integrate our systems from scratch, right? And the reality is that a lot of these companies expect certain things to be there, ready to go. Among them, an asset management system, right? Like they don't want to build out a new wallet, right? Every game developer does not want to be a Web3 wallet developer at all. And the current wallets, I have to say, even there's some that are trying to make really good designs. Most of them just suck terribly. They're just horrible, horrible experiences. And the reason for it is because they basically put the protocols in your face, right? Like you need to know what chain you're connected to. You need to know where your asset is. You need to know uh, do you have the gas token that you're going to pay with? Like if you're in Cardano or if you're in um, Polygon, you need to know that you have those gas tokens and ready to go. So imagine if for sending an email, you needed to type the IP address of the server that you're going to connect to, right, of the Google server. Imagine that you needed to know which version of the protocol you're going to use. Imagine if you needed to generate your own SSL certificate and tie it together so that your traffic was encrypted. All of the things that I mentioned, the Gmail application does automatically for you. You don't even think about it. You don't care about them because what you care is about sending your email. So that's exactly what Dega Render is about, right? It's a application for end users so they can manage their Web3 assets and not even think or care about am I in a layer one, a layer two, a layer three? Do I have the gas token? None of that. They just simply want an asset. They can get it. They want to send it. They do so. They don't think about what blockchain they're interacting with.
Thank you for that, Carlos. Again, really adding a layer of simplification for people that are in the space, looking at things from a front end user's perspective, right? I know as a lot of us right now, we're super early in the space, and there's a lot more technical people than I would say, just regular consumers. But when you look at a platform, for example, like Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, all these things, the majority of people coming into these platforms are going to be front end users, or people that are coming in to actually use the platform without necessarily having to know or understand what is behind it. Similar like the internet, it's opened up so many doors for us, but a lot of people don't understand all the different layers involved and all the different protocols involved in actually making the internet run. We just know that, hey, you open up Safari, Google Chrome, etc., you're connected, you're good to go. So I think again, this is going to be something that's needed, and inevitably, as blockchain matures, we are going to come to the step or to the point where people are going to be interacting with blockchain seamlessly without even knowing that whatever they're using or whatever platform they're on is actually run by blockchain infrastructure in the background. So
Yep.
I really appreciate what you guys are doing here. And again, I think you guys are very well poised, especially at this very early stage, to adopt a lot of the market share as you guys roll out. Now, let's take a little bit of a break here before we jump into the next topic. You guys currently have an ISPO that is going on right now, right? Do you mind maybe touching, on the ISPO and how the community can get involved in what you guys are doing right now, because you guys are at a really early stage for the DEGA platform?
Yeah, so the ISPO, as you know, it's a very well known concept in the Cardano ecosystem. The difference of what we're doing is we're bringing this concept to other chains. We're making the first multi chain ISPO ever. So we already launched the stake pool on Cardano that works pretty conventionally. Anybody that's ever been part of an ISPO, uh, this essentially works the same way, right? And now we're actually a week away from launching the Polkadot ISPO, the first ever, which is going to be September 7th. And then after that, we'll probably take it to Polygon and then Ethereum. And in those networks, as I'm sure, for anybody out there that's technical, they'll probably be thinking like, wait, those guys don't have, you can't just set up a pool and get delegation. So for those two networks, we're going to do it with liquid staking derivatives, and on top of those systems, we will be building out the modules or the smart contracts that allow us to be able to funnel the proof of stake rewards to a project. In this case, DEGA's own ISPO, but in the future, anybody can use these modules to do other ISPOs. So that's going to be announced in the few weeks, the exact days in which we're going to be doing that. So that's what would really sets this ISPO apart. And also, we're also doing gamification around the ISPO, right? Particularly on Cardano, we've already started doing this, which is, for example, anybody that holds our partner tokens gets an extra bonus. Anybody that holds one of our premium pass for our NFTs, they also get a bonus. And then there's also duration bonus, right? So the longer that you've been delegating on the stake pool, you'll get an additional reward on top of that. And this is something that we really want to push the envelope with. We're actually just trying out some mechanics for ourselves right now. But as we bring more web, we're actually going to bring several Web2 companies into Web3 through ISPOs. And we're going to be further experimenting with the gamification around that. So we look at it as something that could become a potential new subscription model for Web3, right? As I'm sure you're aware of, everybody's trying to solve that issue. Like, how do I get subscriptions in Web3? It's very hard because the whole point of Web3 is being non custodial, right? So if nobody can move my funds except me, then you can't auto charge me. But a good way to kind of like sidestep that is if we use stake pools, right, to be able to stream a constant flow of cash towards a project, and then in turn for that we get access to XYZ benefits, right? So that's kind of like the vision of where we are right now with ISPOs and where we want to take them.
Thank you, Carlos. And one thing for me, is the partnerships that you guys have struck to raise more awareness surrounding the ISPO. So for anybody watching this, maybe it's just better that you explain it, but I'll go ahead and take a shot. But I believe you guys have partnered with Cornucopias. You guys have also partnered with Meld, as you mentioned, and then most recently Iagon and World Mobile. So if you hold a certain amount of tokens, I'll leave that particular amount down in the description for today's video. You are able to earn a bonus as well as an additional bonus for the actual length of time that you stake or delegate from the Cardano side into the DEGA ISPO stake pool. So I'll go ahead and leave the links to all that information for anybody who's looking to get and join the DEGA revolution. And again, I want to thank you here for your time. So let's keep things rolling along unless you have any maybe closing thoughts that you want to add surrounding the ISPO.
Just that, an open invitation to anybody that wants to join us. We're definitely backed by the biggest brands in the ecosystem, as you said, World Mobile, which is one of the greatest projects, I would say, in the industry overall. Meld Finance, which has done the largest ISPO to date with over $1 billion worth of delegation, and Cornucopias Games, which people ask me about their competitors. I'm like, they have no competitors, man. They're the only ones doing AAA quality, and I believe you've interviewed them as well, and you'll be showcasing some of that. So, yeah, basically, there's literally nobody else out there in the ecosystem left that isn't backing Dega in that sense. Well, we also have great partners from BiFi, which we met at Rarivo. So shout out there to Steve and Igon, which we're very excited to work with as well. So that's kind of like my closing remark.
Perfect. Wonderful way to close that out. I did also get to hang out and chill a little bit with Steven from BiFi. I haven't gotten Avjeet on the channel yet from Iacon, but I will be following back up to make sure that we can secure an interview with him too. All right,
Yep.
let's move things along. We're going to jump straight into Metachains. So we've touched on the core products, right, which include the DEGA Studio. We've touched on DEGA Render. We've touched on the ISPO. Now, with respect to the technology, there's three different things that you guys have listed on your website. One of those is going to be what you guys refer to as Metachains, aka a scaling solution. Do you mind touching on, how Metachains work and how this is going to fit into the DEGA vision?
Yeah, so metachains is a concept, right? More so than any specific low level technology in that sense, right? And what do I mean by that? Think about it how we talk about virtual machines in the cloud, right? Like a virtual machine can be done, you can do it with VMware software, VirtualBox software, and many other types of software out there, right? It doesn't really matter. What matters is the concept of a VM, right? Which everybody's using now to be able to power their cloud and to be able to have flexibility in their infrastructure. Or we can also talk about the concept of a container, right? A virtual container, which is, the most popular ones are Kubernetes containers, but there's others. So the whole point is this concept allows us to be able to make different implementations, but we always solve the key problem, right? Which is being able to have flexibility with the distribution and allocation of resources, being able to, let's say, segment, right, the processing that we do with our business logic and several other services. And that allowed the cloud to be just insanely flexible, right? Like, to give you an example, Google has this service called Cloud Run. So you can just create containers. You don't even create virtual machines. And the containers are not even up if they're not being used, right? They're kind of like stored, their metadata. So that means that you only pay for the usage that you get. So, if you have a month in which you don't have that many visitors, your payment is very low. If then suddenly you get a spike or you go viral, the system can literally scale to millions of concurrent users, right? So going 0 to millions, no, with basically no additional cost to you. I mean the additional cost of the scaling, yes, but not additional cost of having to build out a new system, right? In the past, you would have needed one system when you start out, right? A cheaper version of it, and then a more expensive scalable version as you grow. Now, thanks to the technology that we've built in the cloud, you can create one system design that works for one user and works for 2 million users. That's beautiful, right? That's something that I like to call a beautiful machine in that sense, right? So metachains is that basically is the thought of considering working with blockchains and forgetting about the fact that you're, am I in a layer one? Am I in a layer two? Am I in a side chain? Am I in a layer three, in a layer four in the future when we need even more hyper scalability? You don't care, right? The point is that it's a blockchain, that it's there for you. It can give you the same decentralization requirements, and it's integrated into the current ecosystems, right? Now, from a practical perspective, how would that be built? In computer science, we have, the application of a pattern, which is called fractals, right? So fractal is a mathematical concept per se, right? But in computer science, we tend to use it for structuring, like, think of like a tree hierarchical structure, right? So it's like the same component that's in the parent, you can find in the child and in the child of the child, and so on, right? So this fractal structure now is possible on blockchains, right? Thanks to technologies called recursive zero knowledge proofs, right? And you can have recursive snarks, which is a particular type of zero knowledge proofs, and you can even have now recursive starks, which was invented by the people over there at Starkware. And these technology allow you to have like a hierarchical collapsing blockchains, right? So my layer threes collapse into a layer two, and those layer twos collapse into a layer one. And they are generate a proof which is mathematically verifiable, and it's very simple to do so. Like the verification is something like 10 milliseconds, right? For you to get an idea for the audience. Like if you grab a second and you divide it by 1,000 pieces, you need like 10 of those pieces to do a verification on some of these zero knowledge proofs. So that's very impressive, right? That means that a single threaded processor can do 100 verifications per second, right? So imagine verifying 100 different blockchains in a very simple machine, right? The proofs. So that means that now we can separate, for example, a DEX. It can have its own, let's say, layer three, right? Then we can have a NFT marketplace. It can have a separate layer three. We can process them individually. Like these transactions have nothing to do with each other, right? Like an NFT swap has absolutely nothing to do with an LP trade on an AMM DEX. But now, right, as we exist, as we built them today, they're both competing for the same block space. That's nonsensical, right? They have nothing to do, they have no context shared with each other. So when we separate them, now we can process them individually, compress them through zero knowledge proofs, and validate the proofs in the underlying layer. And then that layer two could even communicate with another one because they have a shared layer one, right? And thanks to that proofs, now we can have an ecosystem that can scale to millions of transactions per second while remaining in the same data context overall, right? So you can think about something like, it would take, like when the system is fully built, it would take something like 10 to 12 seconds to verify literally thousands of blockchains and have them all have the same shared data in that sense. So same shared data context, to be more specific. So that's what Metachains is about, right? About being able to create these blockchains that just spin up, process, then collapse, right? And you could have some of them be permanently existing, and some of them could be issued even elastically, right? So right now I have a low processing requirement, so I just have, let's say, my layer two, right? And I'm fine with that. And then when boom, I became popular because I'm featured, in a viral video, and everybody wants to use this Web3 game, and then we have hundreds of thousands of people jumping in concurrently. So we can spin off now, instead of having just one layer two system, we can now have new layer threes and distribute the load there, and then collapse them and consolidate them in the layer two. When they're no longer needed, then they're just completely removed. So that's the entire concept around metachains, right? It's about kind of like blurring the implementation of a blockchain to the actual use and benefits of the Web3 and blockchain technologies overall.
I could definitely see your computer science background coming out in the way that you're explaining the ZK rollups. You were talking about the trees and all of that, and that reminds me a little bit of my college days. And so I think your expertise is really shining here, and I really love how you put that there. You know, the scalability that you may not always necessarily have to use, but it's built in a way that as you do need it, it's all done very quickly and very seamlessly. A really wonderful explanation as to what metachains are and some of the technology driving that. Let's go ahead and just keep things rolling. I think you're on fire right now. Let's jump into authentication, right? So you guys also have an authentication piece of software that you guys are going to be providing to the community space as well. So do you mind maybe touching, on that and what that brings to the table?
So dAUTH is our concept, or let's say our flavor of what people are calling a account abstraction on the Ethereum world, right? Which is essentially means that you don't need to be thinking about your blockchain account management as a separate thing from just having a user account, right? And we actually started designing this concept even before they started talking about account abstraction. Um, but I'm glad that other teams in the industry are working on it. Definitely, like I've said before, like we don't want to build everything, and we can't build everything. So if other teams are already working on similar things, that's great. We're happy to integrate as much as we can from the open source community and also make our own contributions, right? Now, underlying the dAUTH protocol basically is inspired from the OAuth protocol, right? So the OAuth protocol is what everybody's using today in social media platforms. Like if you go to any web app and you see login with Google or login with Facebook or login with Twitter, that is OAuth, right? That's an open standard. So we're taking some of those mechanics to design the dAUTH protocol, right? So you'll have a login with DEGA on many of the games and metaverse systems that people are going to be building with us, right? And that's why we needed DEGA Render, right? Because again, it's like imagine like if I'm a passionate game developer and I'm like, okay, I want to use blockchain because I want to be able to take, crypto as payment. I want to get paid in stable coins because I live in a country in which, the banking system is not working well, but, I can still make games on my $400 laptop or even desktop, right? But the whole point is that now is what I got to build a wallet and I got to build this authentication system and this account. No, I can't deal with that, right? Like if I'm a game developer, I don't have time to go and get a PhD in blockchain to be able to build out my game. So that's the whole point of dAuth. Basically, replace doing the same thing that OAuth does, but for Web3.
Again, thank you for that. Really trying to provide an ecosystem, seamlessly integrating crypto, Web2, and anybody looking to join into the space. There's one more piece that I want to touch on, and then we're going to go ahead and kind of land the plane here. And the next piece is going to be surrounding dNFTs, which is short for DEGA NFTs. Do you mind introducing what that is and what the benefits of DEGA NFTs are?
Yeah, so basically, dNFT will be a level towards which an irregular NFT can, let's say, grow into, right? NFTs that are created in our ecosystem. So dNFTs are going to be used in DEGA to be able to validate the DEGA protocol, right? So DEGA protocol is going to live in what people would mostly call the layer zero, right? We don't call it that. We call it the meta layer internally, right? Because it's not exactly the same. But basically, the meta layer is going to be managing all of this multiple layer twos, all of this infrastructure across different ecosystems, right? Because like we've said from the beginning, Dega is going multi-chain, right? It's a multi-chain project. It always has been and will remain so. So we need to be able to have an orchestrator coordinating metadata across different protocols, right? So to be able to have this decentralized version of the layer, because we could do it centralized, of course, but that kind of beats the whole point. So to have this decentralized, we need to have proof of stake, right? That's a pretty well validated consensus algorithm. So we're going to be using proof of stake, and in DEGA, the only difference is that not only will you need the DEGA token, but you'll need the dNFTs, right? And the dNFTs are going to allow you to be able to have a DEGA validator, right? And the reason for having these dNFTs is because they're going to accrue reputation. So the dNFTs basically will be used to validate DEGA, the DEGA protocol, and they will accrue reputation, right? So that means that it's not a matter of just jumping on board and buying a whole bunch of tokens. The network will also form stronger relationships with those nodes that have greater reputation, right? And when you misbehave, you will lose reputation instead of money, right? So why are we doing it this way, right? Because sometimes I've seen that on some protocols that have slashing, people accidentally make programming mistakes, and they're getting punished for it, right? So I think that software miscoding or something shouldn't be a reason for you to lose a lot of your money, right? So that's one thing. But at the same time, we didn't want to have like no way for the network to kind of like block you out if you are a bad actor. So basically, based on the reputation, the network will start to ignore you if you're attacking it consistently. Then your reputation will consistently drop until a point in which you're basically ignore you, right? And then you have to build up that reputation again slowly. So that means that it's not a matter, oh well, they blacklisted this validator, I'm just going to set up another validator and then continue the attack. No, you're going to have to build up your reputation again, right? So those are kind of like that's kind of like the idea of having these dNFTs. And their reputation will also have a weight in the decisions in the DAO. So in governance, it's also an important factor to not only allow somebody to just buy a whole bunch of tokens and now control the DAO. Through DNFTs, we kind of mitigate that type of attack because they'll need to be able to accrue reputation over time by protecting the network, and therefore their vote is now weighted against that reputation. And that allows the system to be more secure on the governance side of things as well.
Thank you for that as well. Now, we are going at about 35 minutes. I want to ask you two more questions. So, right now we're undergoing the ISPO. We've touched on all the products, all the services, and the technology. I know it's far out, but could we potentially expect a test net? And then when are you guys potentially eyeing for a mainnet launch?
So there's two things there, right? Like the token generation event is being eyed for next year, Q1, right? And some of our modules and systems will be deployed even before that, right? So we're already building a lot of things that are going to be coming out this year, right? And the way that we're doing, because I'm as you said, like I'm a computer science engineer, so everything that I designed it in a decoupled way. So even if we don't have the DEGA meta layer ready, we can start already deploying systems, and we can even mint the token, right? And then integrate the meta layer into that, right? How we'll go about that, that's literally an entire 1 hour call in and of itself. And some of the things we're still, ironing out the finer details on some of those steps there. But in short, there's Deca modules coming out this year on multiple blockchains, and there's going to be a Deca token in Q1 next year, minting and listing on multiple exchanges. And then I think around December or January, we'll be giving an update around the meta layer itself, right?
Exciting news to hear. I'm definitely going to be doing my job to keep up with it. I think the ISPO's gathered a lot of attention from the Cardano community. As you mentioned, you guys are getting ready to roll that out and get that executed on additional chains, really building out and executing on the cross chain vision that the DEGA protocol has. Let's jump into the last question here, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you some time back for your evening here, Carlos. The last thing I want to ask you is going to be surrounding where you just see DEGA in the near future. So looking ahead, what are DEGA's future plans and upcoming developments? And what can the partners that you guys have partnered with look forward to, as well as the Cardano community specifically?
I would say that we're very ambitious in the sense that we want to become a massive center of gravity of the gaming industry, right? Particularly a massive gravity that sits between Web 2 and Web 3, which will be blurred eventually, right? It'll just be gaming, and you won't separate it between Web 2 and Web 3. So the way we're going to accomplish this is, one, we're continuing to onboard other great partners to build with, and on multiple ecosystems, right? Like we already have the Polkadot, the Polygon, and the Ethereum partners as well lined up. Some of the largest brands and those ecosystems as well. And in Cardano, we're still reaching out to many other companies that we're very excited to work with, and even other ecosystems, right? Eventually we'll go to other blockchains. We haven't decided which yet, but we'll be onboarding more. So that's one thing, right? That really makes us powerful in the sense that you are the average of the people that you associate yourself with, right? So DEGA is definitely on the top 1% of association in terms of the projects that work with us. A lot of our colleagues, like if you see a lot of them, they're just completely focused on the gaming studios, right? They're like, yeah, we're talking to this studio and that studio. The truth is, like, if you can't bring them like a powerful audience that's interested in what you're building, they're not going to use your stuff, right? Like if they're good with what they have right now and they already know how to target that audience, right? So the problem is like, how can you connect? Why would they come to Web3 and do more complicated stuff if there's no benefit for it, right? So we also need to onboard the other parts of the industry, which are the streamers. We need to get them on board with the movement, right? Which is about, people think it's only about, oh, NFTs and tokens. That's just a product, man. What it's about is open systems. That's what it really is about. Like people don't know how restrictive Web2 games are. They're insanely restrictive. They have a whole bunch of rules. Like you can't stream my game and do this. You can't stream my game and do that. You can't monetize it this way. You can't do this type of thing when they're dictating to you, the user, and you're paying for these things, and they're dictating to you how you can use it, right? So and it's not that they're evil or anything. It's just, that's the way the thing has have always been. So with Web3, it's about having an open system. It's like, this is what I'm building, show me what you can build, show me what you can do, show me your ideas, right? We have a totally different philosophy in Web3.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first from the man himself, Carlos Rene, the DEGA CEO. Again, they're going to be a platform which is coming to Cardano as well as a few other networks to simplify and provide advanced tooling for people looking to get into crypto to do it in a seamless and easy and a scalable method. So whether it's utilizing the DEGA Studio, DEGA Render, the dAUTH, as well as DEGA NFTs, or even the Metachains, go ahead and check them out. They've got a lot of tooling that they will be bringing here to blockchain and crypto. Now, that said, if you guys enjoyed today's video with myself and Carlos, as always, make sure to go ahead and hit that like button. If it's your first time stopping by and you guys maybe just want more content like this surrounding all the great builders here in Cardano and outside within just the blockchain space, consider subscribing. And as always, if you guys have any questions for myself or Carlos, make sure to go ahead and leave those down below in the comment section. That said, we'll catch you guys in the next video.